Welcome to Personal Mastery Training. I'm your host, Alvin Brown, former world-class athlete turned entrepreneur and consultant. Join us as we learn from guests who have conquered their inner battles and share their journeys to success. Get ready for inspirational masterclasses and thought-provoking strategy sessions to fuel your path to personal mastery. Let's dive in. Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to episode 201. I'm super excited to have my next guest on. It's a big deal. 200 episodes. I can't believe it. Time flies so fast, and when you're having fun too. And this is a passion project for me, this whole thing of sharing information for 30 years or more, but I'm going to say 30 of my practice that I've sat and listened to people do suicide, as Sadhguru says online, suicide in installments. I've watched them live in quite desperation, wanting to be great, wanting to whatever they define greatness as, wanting to master their life, wanting to the suffering we go through is a lack of mastery of our inner thoughts, mastery of our body, our mind, our spirit, our soul. So this is a passion project for me, and it's 200 episodes that I just every week I just give it to you and I deliver. I can be consistent about it. So I thought 200. Wow. Who can I was attempting to get, it was last minute, I was trying to get this man on for 200, but I got him for 201. And I'm super excited about it, bringing him back. He was on my episode already. What's interesting about getting him back on for me is I've sat and I've watched as a passenger on his journey. I've watched the progression. I've watched the focus. I've watched the intensity. I've watched all the things he's doing that I've seen a lot of people not do, refuse to do, or push back from. And they say success is not a lack of resources, about being more resourceful. And I've seen him do so many resourceful shifts and do things that are like a chess match being played. So I wanted to get him back on to dive into some of the rawness of what I saw and to help you get on your mastery journey. So I'm just going to introduce him as I don't even have an intro because I know him so well. I've known him for a few good years now, and I met him was probably 18 years old, I think, 17, 18 years old, Soccer Sam and all his story. I let him tell his story to remind you, those who you can go back in the episodes and find the original when I got him on first, but I'm going to let him go into the details, and then I'm going to get into his current state, his journey now. I mean, I could go on. He's number one youth speaker. Probably, if he's not number one yet, give him time. He will be. And then the sky's the limit. So let me welcome the one, the only Sam Demma. Sam, what
Alvin,
up?
I'm honored to be here. Thank you so much for the return invitation.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Who else would I? There's many. I've got many, in my list, but you're top of mind on when it comes to bringing you back. So tell the audience a bit about your start, and then we will catch up to where you are now and some of the things I want to point out for our audience.
Absolutely. Born and raised in Scarborough, Ontario, in Canada, and then moved to Pickering. I am half Italian, half Greek. I grew up with athletics being a big part of my childhood. My father wanted me to play hockey because he was a hockey player himself.
Mhm.
I hated skating, but when he put a soccer ball in front of me, couldn't keep me still,
Right.
even if it was in our own house. And my mom hated that I was kicking the ball against the furniture nonstop.
Hmm.
Pursued this childlike dream of playing professional soccer from the age of 5 until I was 17, 18 years old. It brought me many different opportunities in places around the globe, introduced me to so many amazing humans and some of my lifelong friends that I still talk to this day.
Hmm.
I pursued it with everything I had. I I dedicated my entire life to it, especially throughout high school. And the way my life unfolded, I had 3 major knee injuries, 2 surgeries. I ended up losing a full ride soccer scholarship. I spent 2 to 3 years toward the end of my soccer journey trying to get back on the field, but every time I would make some progress, I would have another injury and another operation.
Hmm.
And after about 2 years, I decided to close that chapter of my life and open my mind up to starting a new one.
Mm-hmm.
And that was thanks to many wise mentors like yourself and my grade 12 road issues teacher and books I was reading and Jim Rohn. And it took my trajectory on a whole different path. But the character traits of hard work, discipline, teamwork, time management were things that I carried forward with me.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be a leader. I wanted to make a positive impact. That led to a whole bunch of initiatives, some that involved picking up garbage and others that involved speaking in front of groups of people. And that's where I found my passion for performing, and it's carried me forward ever since.
Did you think, going back to the day, did you think PickWaste, that's Sam's birth child there, the PickWaste company, picking up, when he said picking up garbage, did you think that would have been a launching pad for a speaking career? Why did you start that? I know Mr. Proudfoot. Is that
Mr.
right?
Loudfoot,
Loudfoot. Yeah,
you're
yeah,
close.
right. Yeah, yeah. He was your kind of triggered the thought, the vision of this.
Correct. It was a lesson he taught in class about small, consistent actions leading to a massive impact. And he
Mm-hmm.
challenged us with a simple question: what small, consistent action can you take to change something in your life or in your school or in your community?
Mm-hmm.
His thesis was if we took that small, consistent action, we can make a massive impact. I went in the community, didn't know what I wanted to change. All I cared about, frankly, until that point in my life was soccer and sports.
Mm-hmm.
And walking home from school one day, I saw a coffee cup on the sidewalk, and the thought just crossed my mind to pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
I picked it up, made the decision in that moment that every day I would put a plastic bag in my backpack and I would fill it with trash on the way home.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was so lazy, I decided to do this on the way home so I didn't have to walk off the sidewalk,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, and I did it for about 4 months, and then a buddy saw me. He's like, "Why don't we do this together?" We started doing weekly cleanups that summer.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought of speaking. I had no intention to become a speaker, but we needed more volunteers.
Mm-hmm.
So the
Mm-hmm.
next fall, September, when school started,
Yep.
and even toward the end of the school year, I asked my principal and a few other principals if I could have 5 minutes to speak at their pre existing events to share a volunteer opportunity with their students. And I had so much fulfillment from speaking on stage, and also felt like I was making such a important contribution that I wanted to do more of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I still at that point didn't look at it as a launching pad or an opportunity until maybe 30, 40 presentations in, a principal gave me $50.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, 50
Mm-hmm.
bucks for 5 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Elvin, I'm gonna retire my parents.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's over,
Uh-huh.
but it
Uh-huh.
just it made me very curious.
Right.
And he said, we bring people in to deliver programs all the time. Now, I know yours was only a few minutes, but I think, you were very relatable and the students loved it. I think you should look into this as a
Mm.
career opportunity, as a pathway you could pursue.
Mm.
And I went home and I searched up different speakers on Google, and I called everybody I could find that had a phone number listed on their website. 9 out of 10 people, 90% of them gave me their time, answered questions. And that was the moment where I really considered pursuing this as a pathway while building PickWaste.
So a few things. I'm keeping everything in my mind. Is first of all, I don't know if you rewind this later, you'll hear you say my backpack, putting things in my backpack. It's ironic that your platform right now is your backpack, the big red backpack. So it's a little bit of irony there against being set up. You had your backpack on and you're picking up waste. And
Mm.
anyway, so that's one. The second one I wanted to point out is there's a great um, quote. I don't like the word quote. I change those to wisdom. There's a great wisdom that said, courage is not, or fear is not the lack of courage. It's something's more important than the
Mm.
fear itself. So for you, the idea that I didn't want to get out there and speak. I remember, I'm going back to some conversations we had and stories you told of your first speaking gig. I think it's recorded, was horrible.
It's terrible.
It
Yeah.
was all right. It was horrible. And and but you still got out there because the need to speak to these kids to get them to volunteer was greater than the how horrible it was
Mm.
for you. And thank God, because now here we are. You've kept being courageous and build on it, build on it, and here you are now again. I'm not sure if I said it right, if you're number one, but if not, you're chasing it. So that's amazing. That's unbelievable to me. So, and the other part I got to point out for everyone, I'm just picking nuggets out of what Sam said here. Number one thing is, how many people heard Mr. Loudfoot? Did I get that right? Yeah,
You got it right.
how many people heard Mr. Loudfoot that day, but only one person heard what they needed to hear and took action. So again, if those are listening can pick out those nuggets. One, how many times have you heard something and it's when the universe is giving you messages and you've ignored them or you haven't taken, the hero's journey. You're living in the normal world, the ordinary world, and you get a call to action. You can either refuse the call and go back into it and live just keep going what you're doing, or take a trip into the special world where you're going to get challenges. And that's what we're going to talk about with Sam here. He's living the hero's journey right out now. If go online, everybody, and Google the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell's work, and you'll see Sam. He had glimpses in his soccer time of the special world. He had glimpses. He traveled. He had a taste, but then it was challenging came, and then he had an opportunity to step back into the ordinary world, but he kept pushing, kept pushing. So amazing stuff. So tell us now, Sam. Let's get back to you. Where are you now, and what's happening? What's the vision now? Here we are, PickWaste. Oh my goodness, I'm on now. I gotta speak. Oh, couple. Maybe I will. Where you at now?
Yeah, good questions. I love Joseph Campbell's hero's journey as
Mm-hmm.
well. So
Mm-hmm.
if you didn't pause this podcast to search it up, unfortunately, you are not the one. So
Mm-hmm. Right.
pause it and go look
Yeah.
at it. I was
Mm-hmm.
listening to a lecture with Jim Rohn, and he said the numbers are always the same. 10% will and 90% won't.
Yeah.
And he said the numbers never change, only the faces do. And
Mm-hmm.
why some people listen to something and don't take action versus those who listen and do is a mystery. But if you're listening to this right now and there's something you need to change in your life or a resource that's mentioned by Elvin, pause and explore that thing or write it down or look into it or take an action and make sure you don't miss it.
So Sam, before keep the thought of where you're gonna go, but I'm gonna throw. See, Sam threw at me some Jim Rohn that he's been consuming. So I'm gonna throw one back at him. I'm sure he's heard it, and it fits perfectly. Where Jim said, "Some people are so busy studying the root, while
Mm.
others are busy eating the fruit."
Mm.
You know what I mean? So some people want to know what's the detail on that. So give me the science behind that. While some people are just eating the fruit, they're just making it happen. So, anyways, go ahead, my man. Tell
I
tell
love
us
that.
about tell us about where you are now, man. What's happening? Because the future is big for you.
Yeah, I've gotten to a point now where performing is my life. Back then, I was performing to recruit volunteers to speak at PickWaste, and now I do it as a means of impacting thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
I've done over 600 events all across Canada, the
Wow,
United States. I'm in a few days, depending on when this is released. I will be traveling to Kenya for 6 weeks
unbelievable.
to speak in 30 schools. We have a book, Empty Your Backpack, a second book on the way, a children's book that no one knows about yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so many projects that are being put together and worked on. So I'm now at a place where performing has become my entire life, and I love it.
Yeah,
And my sole goal and mission and aim is to become the best possible performer that I can.
amazing.
Um, there was a phase in my journey where I started playing for the points instead of playing for the love of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
Right,
so focused on the next client and the next paycheck and the next opportunity that I forgot about the next heart that was going to be sitting in front of me.
right,
That I forgot
right.
about the reason why I started doing this work in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
Love that.
a one-off conversation with my neighbor that actually like snapped me back
Mm.
into my purpose. And um, well, I'll just give you the story. Growing up, I didn't have an opportunity to get a part-time job. No one would hire me because of my hours with soccer practice.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I got a piece of paper and I wrote Salvatore's grass cutting service and printed 100 copies and dropped in my neighbor's mailboxes. And the one one of three people who hired me was a gentleman named Ruel that lived across the street. And it took me 4 months to realize that my dad was paying Ruel to pay me to cut his grass.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
But it's an
Uh-huh.
opportunity to learn.
Right. Yep.
And yeah, I would cut his grass. We built a relationship back in
Yep.
2022 when I released my book, Empty Your Backpack.
Right.
Ruel was one of the first people who bought 4 copies.
Okay.
And I was really humbled. And then I continued on my journey of speaking, and a few months passed by, and Ruel's one day standing on the edge of his driveway, and he's waving me over. And so I parked the car, I walk across the street. He's like, dude, your book was so inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, really? He's like, oh man, the kids absolutely loved it. I'm like, yeah, I put them to sleep every single night.
Right.
And keep in mind, these are 3-year-olds, so they didn't even understand the content. But he was like, no, man, your book was awesome. It gave me a lot of things to think about. And he's like, I actually just got promoted to senior partner at Louis Vuitton Brands.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, because of my book?
Mm-mm.
And he was like, no.
Uh-huh.
but he was like, no, but some of the thoughts in your book got me to do something else.
Because your book, yeah.
And he's like, it got me to quit.
Uh,
And I was like, dude, what are you talking about? Like, please don't tell your wife that you read my book before you made
That's
this
right.
decision.
The house is up for sale, but anyways, yeah.
And he got really emotional, and he got up from, we were now sitting in front of his house, and he walked to the garage door and he punched in the passcode, and the doors went up, and 60 bikes are hanging on the wall. And he looks at me and he says, it was my dad's dream for me to climb the corporate ladder, but all I ever wanted to do since I was a little kid was fix bicycles.
Okay.
And he turned his entire garage into a bike shop, and he kept pulling all these pieces off the bikes, and it was like watching a grown man become a little kid. And he was telling me the story behind every single bike in his garage and how it's all working out. And I'm in awe just standing in his garage as he's telling me this story. And before I'm leaving, I asked him, like, how did you build this? He was like, I stopped playing for the points and I started playing for the love of the game. And you asked me where I'm at now. I'm playing for the love of the game.
Yeah.
I was playing for the points for a while.
Yep.
And I think we all have to figure out that it's actually not about the points.
Exactly.
And now it's about, how do I become the best possible performer I can possibly be? Because everything else will fall into place.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at now, and that's what I'm focused on, and everything that I do is creating more leverage for me to spend more time on the craft.
Right.
Yeah, it's all about playing for the love of the game now and improving.
Love it. So great. So now we've covered where Sam is and where he's going. That's great. Don't fall in love with that. Let's step back a little bit now. This is where I want to get into some of this, because I've been watching Sam since I've been watching his actions as he goes along. He's out there. Him and I always talk about being on the terrain, and he's a young lion and he's out there hunting. And along the way, as we suggested, go back and look at Joseph Campbell's. He's into the special world now. Sam's entering the special world, admittedly. He's going to get allies. Step number 7, I think, is allies, and he's going to get some enemies, some haters. And Sam, I saw years ago, Sam would do a little thing, a Riz walk, he would call it. This was way back. This is like way back when he's just performing to people locally and doing his thing. And he would have his whole thing about going to Mexico and doing Latin dance and that whole thing. So now I'm watching online. Here I am watching him online doing the Riz walk, the classic Riz walk, Sam's Riz walk. And all of a sudden I'm seeing what is happening right now. Haters are coming on there, somehow attributing, because this idea of, I asked some younger people, said, what does Riz mean now? Oh, it means something with but they've associated his Riz walk with some kind of grooming young people and do the wildest accusations about this man attempting to change lives. People helping people to empty their backpacks. Now they've turned it into he's got some paraphernalia in those backpacks, apparently. But anyways, what I'm getting at is what I want to dive into now is, Sam, how are you dealing with the we cannot avoid it. So what I want people to realize that when we see successful people climbing, doing their thing, living their passion, living their hearts on fire, they're living this bike, your neighbor, and now Sam's out there doing his thing. It comes at a cost every time you rise, every time you go up the ladder of success. So Sam, where did this come from and how are you dealing with these accusations? Unfounded.
Yeah. So for context, everyone who's tuning in, the Riz walk is a funny walk I created as a 5-second piece of my 60-minute performance.
Right.
And it's a pop culture term. Riz is a term that's short for charisma. So the Riz walk means you have charisma in your step. And so I created a funny looking walk, and students see it online, a 5-second segment of it, and they post the most crazy comments. And mind you, these are total strangers. These are not people who have seen the show. And the first time I posted the Riz walk, it must have been about 2 or 3 months ago now. And the video got 2.5 million views and 75,000 people shared it. And so millions of people are seeing it. My first response was like, wow, like this is it. This is the moment, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I logged off my phone for 5 hours and came back on, and I started reading the comments.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, this guy needs to kill himself. You need to stay 500 feet away from a school.
Mm-hmm.
You're a pedophile. This guy likes kids. This guy's grooming children. And I was like, what the heck? So I actually had a good 2 to 3 day period where I felt like I had to defend myself and like respond to every comment and delete all the comments. And I actually found myself in bed a lot, just like scrolling on my phone. And then and then I realized that all these people that are commenting all this negative garbage are helping me get my message in front of all the people who need to hear it. And among all the stupid comments, I would get like 15, 20 DMs that said things like, hey man, I don't know why people are being so disrespectful about the Riz walk. It helped me find your other videos and I really need to hear some of them. So thank you so much for putting this content out there.
Nice.
And I was like, okay, there's something here. And so I've made the decision that I'm not going to change who I am to please strangers on the internet. So I will continue posting the things that I will post. How I've dealt with it is one, I've decided that every time I read someone's comment, I'm going to quickly ask myself, is this genuine criticism that could help me improve, or is this pure hate and jealousy? And if it's pure hate and jealousy, I'm not going to give any thought to it, or I will delete it and take it off the post. The second thing I've reminded myself, like Jim Rohn said, there are certain people in this world who will never change. There are people who are angry today that will be angry forever. There are people who are hateful today that will be hateful forever. And when some of those comments show up on my feed, I remind myself, those are the angry people. Those are the hateful people. And I'm not going to try and change them. I'm going to keep going on my journey, despite the fact that they're showing up. And then the third thing that I do is engage, but on very select occasions. Every once in a while, they still get me. Like I was telling you before the call started, there was someone locally who lived in Pickering who commented, and I can verbatim tell you his comment because it really affected me in the moment. His comment said, you are absolutely pathetic. Nothing that you do requires any special skills, talents, or abilities.
Wow.
And I clicked on his profile and saw that we were connected to 6 people. And I was like, wow, and so I responded the only way I know how to, which is with kindness and respect.
Right.
And I noticed that he was a baseball player. And I was like, hey man, look, I have so much respect for you as an athlete myself. Like we are both pursuing dreams that everyone calls unrealistic. I really hope one day I see you playing in the show, and I wish you all the best." And he responded back, "At least I knew when to walk away from my dreams and you didn't." And I was like,
Nice. Very good.
understood,
Yeah.
understood. I'm living
Yeah.
my dream, my friend. And so
Mhm.
it totally just calmed me down.
Right.
Um, and reminded
Uh,
me that, hey man, no one who's climbing the mountain, their own mountain, is busy pulling somebody else off theirs.
exactly.
And a quote I always think about, or a wisdom as you would say, when you build the tallest building in town, it's always going to cast shade on somebody.
Bingo. Bingo. And I'm gonna tie on to that wisdom where they say if I come along and I see Sam has the highest building in town, there's two ways I can beat Sam. I can build a higher building, invest in it, put my time in and build a higher building, or I could tear Sam's building down. And then now I can build a smaller, but at least it'll be the tallest one. So, there's so much to it. And this is one reason, Sam, why I think a lot of people I work with so many people who, oh man, they're so afraid of the greatness. Marianne Williamson, one of my favorite quotes, and our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. It's not our darkness that most frightens us, it's our light. And we ask ourselves, who am I to be gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Who are you not to be? You're a child of God, right? And there's no use playing small so the other people around you won't feel insecure. And I repeated that for my kids and let them. It was on our wall. They got to know it because our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. It is that we're powerful beyond measure. So that power though comes with great responsibility. So as Sam unravels on layered layers is greatness. It comes with vulnerability, like a ton of vulnerability. Because the book Stephen Pressfield, he has a book called The War of Art, right? You know the book. And he talks about that. The closer you get to your potential, your fire, your heart, your passion, the more vulnerable you are and the more resistance you will meet. So I'm so happy that you're a student of the game, student of life, and you have resources to help you get through. Because imagine if someone said you should die, all these comments. No, some child, some young person out there
Yep.
who needs to be saved, who needs one idea. My mentor says, well executed, can change your life forever. They need to hear that one thing that you had to say, Sam. And if you follow these haters, these small numbers, and backed away, that person won't hear it. So kudos to you, man. I give you big ups on that. So I
I
want to talk
appreciate
about,
it.
yeah, man, definitely. You got, if ever you feel, remember our 8-minute rule, right? Yeah. So Simon Sinek has an 8-minute thing. Just tell me 8 minutes, brother. I'm here. So on to you. Let's talk about your book real quick before our time runs out, and tell us about the concept behind emptying your backpack, and how that can apply to others.
When I deliver a performance for a school, college, university, association, company, I have a giant red backpack that I carry with me on my shoulders.
Ingenious.
It's a clever way to remind people of the importance of their beliefs and philosophies in life and how what we choose to believe affects how we live. I was trying to figure out a good visual to share the importance of that with younger people and the younger generation. And a backpack came to mind because they all carry one. And I thought how convenient to use an analogy that they're going to have on their shoulders every single day and be reminded of while they're literally at school. And I use the backpack as an analogy for our thoughts. And the book is titled Empty Your Backpack because I encourage in the book people to think about the things they're currently choosing to believe or to examine their current philosophies and dissect and let go of the things that are not serving them anymore. Jim Rohn talks about it. We were talking about this before the call as well. Your philosophy is the set of the sail,
Yep.
right? It's not that we need a different boat. It's that we need to slightly adjust how we're viewing our lives. And getting a young student to recognize that, I think, is one of the most challenging things to do, especially in their formative times. That's what really the backpack was all about. And it was inspired by a conversation with a young person who was struggling with their mental health. And when I asked them why, they told me it was the words other people were using to describe them. He was being bullied at school verbally.
Mhm.
And he broke down crying, and our phone call ended. And I just thought to myself, how long has this young person been incarcerated by other people's thoughts, opinions, and words of them?
Mm-hmm.
How long has he carried those thoughts and opinions and words on his shoulders? And that's when the whole image of a backpack came to mind, and I decided I was going to write a book for this young man.
Mm-hmm.
And half of the book is about our beliefs and how we try our best to let go of certain things that weigh us down, and the second half of the book is about actions. And I
Mm-hmm.
believe after you let go of negative thoughts and opinions, we have to replace them with something. And I believe that if we take actions that reaffirm who we want to be, it's an easy way to start shifting those beliefs about ourselves, or the first step. You know, if I thought growing up that I'm a terrible soccer player, if I
Mm-hmm.
go every single day and give myself proof that I'm improving by kicking a ball against the wall, I will soon legitimately start to believe that I am a good soccer player because I'm investing time practicing.
Mm-hmm.
And so the second half of the book is solely dedicated to helping people find those actions so they
Mm-hmm.
can repack their backpack with some positive beliefs and ideas about themselves.
Yeah, you know, Sam, I could totally see as you're talking, I'm envisioning a chicken soup kind of series where, you know, unpack your backpack for adults, because I'm working with a lot of 20, 20. I just interviewed a 20, how old is he? Late 20s, maybe early 30s, and he's running around with a narrative from East Asian, and his parents didn't speak the language to him because they immigrated to Canada. But then they put him in an Asian school, and they said he weren't Asian enough, and so he didn't feel enough. It's interesting to see what you
Mm,
run around with in your backpack, in our narratives that we, and this is the thing, is to, when we think this is you've gone down an alley where, you know, a path that I'm passionate about, is the idea that when we think about our generational wounds that we carry, if my great 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 grandfather was wounded, that wound still continues all the way to now, because we're going to change the pot roast metaphor. I'm sure you've probably heard of the pot
mm,
roast metaphor, right? The woman or the wife, you know, the partner cooks the pot roast and cuts the ends off, and long story short, the partner asks, hey, why you cut the ends off? She didn't know. Went back a few generations, they were still alive. They said, oh, we just cut it off because the oven was too small, but they still cut it off. So,
mm,
you know, it's, so we carry around narratives about culture. Oh, we don't do that. I'm Italian. We don't do that. I'm Jamaican. We don't do that. I'm a, you know, oh my God. No wonder we never feel enough,
mm,
because am I enough as a man? Am I enough as a black man? Am I enough as an Italian man? Am I enough as a this? Am I enough as a father, a mother? So, my friend, empty a backpack for adults. It's you need one of those series soon.
And maybe
So,
that's a
and
belief that I have to let go of, that the book is only for kids, because
right.
I've had so many adults read it and tell me that they got so much out of it.
Yeah.
So it's interesting as I transition in my age as a
Yeah.
young man myself, how my own backpack starts to shift and change.
Yeah.
I even have events where sometimes I will use a little too much self-deprecating humor about my age, and
Mm-hmm.
people have come up and often said, you don't need to say that. Like, you don't need to
Mm-hmm.
make those jokes about your
Mm-hmm.
parents' basement or the
Right.
2008 Pontiac Montana that you drive,
Right.
um, because we're here for you. Like, we
Right.
love the
Yeah.
message and we received it all. And, and,
Yeah.
and I have women coming up crying afterwards. And I'm like, it's time for me to let go of that thought, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Rebirth. As again, if you go on the hero's journey again, number 8, 9, step 8 or 9, it's about death and rebirth. So we all going to do it over and over again in many different ways. So, well, Sam, I think we're coming up onto your allotted time, but definitely we'll have you back again at another time in the future as I continue to watch your evolution, watch your growth. Oh, let's finish off with this real quick. You just got an award. What was that award about?
Ah, dude, thank you so much for asking. And I saw your comment as well, and I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I was awarded um, the Lecturer of the Year by the Canadian Organization of Campus Activities. So
Unbelievable.
it's the college and university associations from across the country come together each year. They do an event, and then they present some awards to some of the speakers and musicians and comedians of the year, and
Wow.
I'm honored that they selected me as the lecturer for this year.
Awesome. Congrats, man. Well deserved. And it makes up for so many of the ones that attempt to detract you from the path. So use those as fuel, because we're all here out here cheering you on and celebrating you, man.
Thanks,
So
brother.
awesome. So everyone, go back. There's so much gold in there, and I attempted not to curb my feedback, because there's so much, and I love picking it out. I love to pick apart, pick waste now. I love to pick apart what he's saying and grab some nuggets out of there. There's so much. So go back and listen to it again. Use it as a resource. Get his book. By the way, where can they get this book? For their kids or for adults, it doesn't matter. Where can they get the book?
Go on Google and search "empty your backpack." You will find it on multiple platforms. The easiest and quickest way would be through Amazon.
Okay, and then how can someone hear you? What's the way to get them to speak at the school, or someone knows someone who can have you in?
Absolutely. You go on my website. It's my name, samdemma.com. That's SAMDEMMA.com. Fill out the contact form, and someone from the team will get in touch quickly, and we'll set up a call to see how I could be of service and support.
Yeah, excellent. And I'm gonna say one last thing here. I was just thinking about this. I can totally see you speaking, going back full circles to speak to teams, soccer
Mm.
teams. Because imagine speaking this into teams as well as schools. And so, anyways, you're going to transition. The world's your oyster. All right, Sam. Thank you, my man. I appreciate you. Thanks for coming on to 201 to light it up. And I'm out here cheering you on, young lion.
Alvin, keep putting people's ladders on the right wall, and I'll see you soon.
Amen, brother. Amen. All right, everybody. Like, subscribe, share. If you know someone who needs to hear this, please do that. Be good and share that. All right. Peace and love.